Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, what is up? What is good? The Kingu of Lightning here today, bringing you guys and gals Hunter x Hunter chapter 367 review. Now, this chapter review probably be quicker than the last one, because the last one was a double chapter review, number one. Number two, this chapter is a lot more streamlined. It has less parts for the pacing and for the story, because the previous chapter had, I think it was like 17 parts for the story and like 15 parts of the pacing. It was a crazy number of parts for one chapter, Togashi. Like literally each page was its own part. It was a crazy chapter. But this chapter, a lot better when it comes from a pacing management standpoint, a lot better when it comes from a story standpoint. Overall, just a better chapter from a management standpoint. So that being said, without further ado, let us dive headfirst into this week's chapter of Hunter x Hunter. Now, when it comes to the pacing of this chapter, we have 5 parts. Now, even though I say it has 5 parts for the pacing, you can actually kind of categorize it as one big part, with the exception of the end, where we now divert to Queen Oito, who was controlling the cockroach, and now she is taking a look at what's going on with Camp Mariem. But the entire thing essentially is just one big part, even when Mayor comes in there. However, within this one big part, there are sub-parts. So, number 1, Camp Wobble. So this is Kurapika, Queen Oito, Bill, and Shimano, the last surviving servant. They are searching for small creatures so Queen Oito can use the ability that Kurapika had attained with the stealth dolphin to take control of that small creature so he can use it for surveillance purposes. That's number 1. Number 2, Mayor arrives to get the intel on the net. That's simple. Number 3, as Kurapika finishes talking to the bodyguards about the Nen Beast and where the origins came from and so on and so forth, something comes into the field of view of Oito, which is a cockroach, and then as Kurapika and Oito stare at the cockroach, the bodyguards notice that they're looking at the cockroach, and then Kurapika calls in Shimano and Bill to capture the cockroach. That's part 3 of the pacing. Part 4 of the pacing is after Camp Wobble falsely display Bill's ability to control the cockroach to the bodyguards. Kurapika then continues to talk about Nen to the bodyguards. And then part 5 of the pacing is Queen Oito. She has begun to survey the other princes now that she has control of the cockroach. And she is first going to look at Camp Mariem, the 13th prince of Kaken. So when it comes to the overall pace, the only real difference there is, you can say, when Mayor comes into the picture, because when he does come into the picture, that's when he starts talking about the Nen stuff to the bodyguards. And on top of that, after it's all said and done, when Oito, she has control of the cockroach, and then she's looking at Camp Mariem. Once Mayor arrives there, that's when the chapter really unfolds. So pacing overall, I would say is okay when it comes to the overall chapter. Now let's go on to the story, and for the story, we have 5 parts to this chapter as well. Now the first thing for story is Kurapika wanting to explain to all the bodyguards, not just Mayor of the 5th Prince's camp, but he wants all the bodyguards. So the bodyguards affiliated with Jang, the bodyguards affiliated with the 2nd Queen Duzal, the bodyguard affiliated with the 1st Prince Benjamin. He wants all the bodyguards that are present to hear his explanation of Nen. That's number 1. Now, number 2 for the story is going to be fairly important when it involves the standing between Camp Wobble, the 14th Prince, and the 1st Prince Benjamin's camp, because the bodyguard that's there, Bavi Maina, something of that sort, let's call him Bavi. Bavi, he is very vigilant. However, they're able to trick him and the other bodyguards into believing that the ability to control small creatures was Bill, when in fact it was Queen Oito via the stealth dolphin, via the ability that it took from, I forgot what his name was, but a few chapters ago. Bavi, who is like their main adversary at this point in time, he believes that Bill has this ability, so he thinks that he's seen Bill's Nen ability, when in fact he hasn't. In fact, we don't know what his ability is, I believe so. Yeah, I don't think Bill has told us what his Nen ability is. And now he's focused mainly on Kurapika and finding out what Kurapika's Nen ability is. So when it comes to the situation between Camp Benjamin and Camp Wobble, it appears that, for the time being at least, when it comes to information of Nen, they hold a slight advantage. Camp Wobble, because Bavi's going to report back to Benjamin that Bill, one of the hunters, has an ability to control small creatures, when in fact he does not. Number 3 for story is a big plus for Kurapika. Now that the stealth dolphin has activated and it has used the ability to take control of small creatures, and now Oito, she has control of the cockroach, the stealth dolphin has disengaged, which means that the Force Emperor Time is now no longer there. So now that Emperor Time has disengaged, Kurapika is now no longer losing lifespan, which is a good thing. He now has that pressure relieved, and now he can focus on being the mastermind that he is right now, because he is running the show when it comes to Camp Bobo and when it comes to a lot of camps at hand. Now, number 4 for story is pretty surprising to me, because I didn't think that Kurapika would go that far, but he clearly is. And that is, he's willing to teach all the bodyguards the basics of Nen. And on top of that, he's also willing to take in other bodyguards as well from the other princes and teach them Nen. Bobby realizes that Kurapika, he's willing to go very far when it comes to creating a stalemate, because the stalemate only benefits Camp Bobo, because Queen Obito and Wobo themselves, they want to escape, because Wobo's a baby. And this is particularly bad for Camp Benjamin, because Camp Benjamin right now, they have the advantage of Nen. And we clearly see when it comes to Camp Benjamin and the second prince, Camila, where Camila was saying how she was going to target Benjamin, and after that, target Hulkenberg. But one of the bodyguards of Benjamin, he has an ability to hear what they're saying, even though he's not in the dining room. So Benjamin's camp is going to continuously lose the advantage of Nen now that more bodyguards and then ultimately more princes will learn Nen, at least the foundations of Nen, so they can better protect themselves from any Nen attacks, including those of the Nen beast. However, according to Kurapika, that will probably take at least 2 weeks, though there could be some geniuses like the 4th prince where they can learn Nen in a much shorter time span. And then finally for story, part 5 is once again Queen Obito. She has begun the surveillance of the other princes and their bodyguards, and she's trying to get a layout of what's going on here. So right now things are moving swimmingly for Camp Wobo. So that is part 5 for the story, and that is the overall story. When it comes to this chapter, I would say it's okay plus to good. It's mainly for the arc itself, and how Kurapika is trying to create a certain environment. They have escaped a few situations that seem to be fairly dire, and finally we have the character part of this chapter, and for this we have 3 parts. The most characterization that we see in this chapter, number 1 for character, and by the way, there's no character development. Maybe you can say Obito gets some development, maybe, I mean, nah. Odds are it's more characterization. But nonetheless, number 1 for character is characterization for the first prince's bodyguard that's in the room, Bavi Maina. Now, Bavi is a very sharp person. And in the previous chapter, I believe that Might, Balsamico Might, he stated that Bavi is more of a counter type, which I don't know what that fully meant, but we see how he doesn't really take any action himself. More so, he just stands there, he surveys. On several occasions during this chapter, he tried to take the initiative out of Kurapika and Company's hands. Not, of course, by force, but he was doing so by saying, well, hold on, why do we need to go into that room? Why not just stay here? Like, let's just stay here and talk about it right here. And also, why have the queen go to her chambers by herself? Why not have the queen here so she can listen in? And that kind of stuff. So he's suggesting various things that take the initiative out of Kurapika and Company's hands. And on top of that, when the cockroach came into view, Bobby noticed how Queen Obito and Kurapika, they were fairly surprised. Their reaction was a bit more unusual than what you would normally get from someone looking at a cockroach. So he caught that. Also, Bobby, he realized that Kurapika, he was the one directing everything. He knew that. And he also came to the realization that the cockroach that Bill had let go into the vents, the port system, whatever it's called, he realized that the cockroach was going to probably be used for surveillance purposes. He assumed, again, that it was Bill, and that was Bill's ability, when in fact it was Queen Obito. But he knew nonetheless that the cockroach is being used for surveillance purposes. And he may report that to, let's say, Benjamin. So if Benjamin and company, if they see a cockroach nearby, they're going to merely kill it, because he believes that Camp Bobo has the ability to spy via controlling small living creatures like insects. And then finally, according to Kurapika, Bobby is using N in the entire room. So Kurapika has to note that Bobby is far more skilled than he gave him credit for. So unlike the previous situation involving a bodyguard of the first prince, Bobby is going to be far more meticulous, far more cunning, and in the long run, probably a much bigger threat as opposed to the other bodyguard. However, keep in mind that in the previous chapter, we know that Benjamin's going to send another bodyguard in direct conflict with Camp Wobo. So most definitely, Camp Benjamin, they're not pulling any punches, and Bobby himself is definitely someone who you can't consider to be a pushover at this current point in time. Now, number 2 for character is going to be Mayor, the bodyguard affiliated with the 5th Prince, Tube something, whatever her name is. And essentially, Mayor, Kurapika knows that he showcases confidence because Mayor has no problem at all with the other bodyguards hearing about what Nen is. All he wants is the intel on Nen. And he believes, Mayor believes, that his camp have the ability to utilize that information better than the other camps. camps, which is why he doesn't care about the other camps, the other bodyguards learning about what Nen is. So that is part 2 for character, and finally part 3 for character is going to be Queen Oito. Now, Queen Oito, when the cockroach appears, she was quick-witted enough to shift the situation into Camp Bobo's favor by saying that she wanted the cockroach captured alive and dispose of it, don't crush it because it's gonna be nasty. And so she used her authority to not arouse suspicion when it came to their reaction of the cockroach. I'm not gonna say that it was character development, simply because we have not seen Queen Oito in a situation like that where she could use said wit. So Queen Oito kicks it off, and she does so very well. And so you gotta give credit where credit is due. But again, I can't say it's character development, because in the past, we can say maybe she would not have been able to do that, but at the same time, that's a pretty big assumption. So for the time being, I'm gonna say it's characterization. And when it comes to character overall, I'm gonna say it's okay plus the good as well. And the main thing here, again, is for Bobby. Because Bobby, in this one chapter alone, has proven that he's not like the other bodyguards where his name is forgettable. Like, he actually has, at this point in time, he has weight in this arc, at this point in time. So that being said, I'm done. When it comes to chaptering overall, I'm gonna say it is a okay plus to good, and we'll leave it at that. Ting Lightning, be sure to rate the video. It is not that hard to do, especially when you all have a device called Zmouse. You use Zmouse to click, rate the video, to click, subscribe, to click on that bell to join the squad, and of course, comment in the comment section down below. Peace, and have a nice goddamn day.